Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode, Maury Island Incident, 1947. Washington State holds a foundational and uniquely legendary status in the history of ufology. More than just a regional cluster of anomalous reports, the Pacific Northwest served as the crucible for the modern UFO phenomenon, capturing the American imagination and shaping global popular culture. Two seminal events in June 1947, occurring just days apart over Puget Sound and the Cascades, put Washington State permanently on the map. The Maury Island Incident, June 21, 1947. Just days before the nationwide wave, Harbor Master Harold Dahl alleged encountering 6 doughnut-shaped craft over Puget Sound near Vashon and Maury Islands. The bizarre episode reportedly involved metallic debris, structural damage to a boat, and a subsequent chilling warning from a mysterious visitor dressed in a black suit, marking one of the earliest conceptual roots of the legendary men in black mythology. Kenneth Arnold's Mount Rainier sighting, June 24, 1947. While flying his private plane near Mount Rainier, businessman and pilot Kenneth Arnold witnessed a string of 9 blindingly bright, high-speed objects weaving between the peaks. His description of objects moving like a saucer skipping across the water instantly birthed the enduring terms flying saucer and flying disc, officially kicking off the modern UFO era just weeks before the famous events in Roswell, New Mexico. Framed by dramatic landscapes, deep forests, and a rich history of high strangeness encounters, Washington State remains an iconic frontier for those probing the boundaries of aerial anomalies, consciousness, and extraterrestrial contact. The Mount Rainier sightings, particularly Kenneth Arnold's famous 1947 sighting, are some of the most significant events in UFO history and are often considered the birth of the modern UFO era. Besides Arnold's 1947 sighting, Mount Rainier has been the location of numerous UFO reports over the decades, with witnesses often describing seeing bright lights and fast-moving objects near the mountain. Maury Island Incident, 1947. The Maury Island Incident, which occurred in June 1947 near Maury Island in Puget Sound, Washington, is one of the earliest and most controversial UFO sightings. It predates the more famous Roswell UFO incident and has fueled much debate and speculation. Maury Island is situated in King County, Washington, within the central basin of Puget Sound. Its distinct geographical and geological features provide important context for both its local ecosystem and its place in Pacific Northwest folklore. Strictly speaking, Maury Island is a tide island. It is physically connected to the larger Vashon Island on its western side by an artificial isthmus built by local residents in 1913. Prior to that construction, the two land masses were separated by water except during periods of low tide. The waters surrounding Maury Island, particularly the embayment cradled between Vashon and Maury Islands, form Quartermaster Harbor. This area features extensive mudflats, shallow eelgrass beds, and critical marine habitats that serve as a primary breeding and spawning ground for regional forage fish, salmon, and wintering seabirds. Geologically, Maury Island is shaped by the legacy of the Cordilleran ice sheet, which advanced south through the Puget Sound Basin during past ice ages. The island is heavily composed of deep, glacial advance outwash deposits, thick layers of compressed sand, gravel, and silt left behind by retreating glacial meltwater. The island features prominent, erodible marine bluffs along its outer edges, dense evergreen forests, and stretches of rural shoreline. Its position in south-central Puget Sound places it within a marine highway corridor, flanked by deep underwater trenches, maritime shipping lanes, and restricted airspace connected to regional military installations. Harold Dahl, a harbor patrolman, claimed to have witnessed 6 doughnut-shaped objects in the sky while on his boat with his son and dog. According to Dahl, one of the objects began to wobble and emitted a substance resembling molten metal, or slag, which damaged his boat, killed his dog, and injured his son. Dahl reported the incident to his superior, Fred Chrisman, who allegedly saw one of the objects when he visited the site the next day. The incident drew the attention of the media and the U.S. government. 2 Air Force intelligence officers, Captain William Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Brown, were dispatched to investigate. They interviewed Dahl and Chrisman and collected samples of the slag-like material. Tragically, on their return flight, their plane crashed and both officers were killed. The samples and all documentation they had collected were lost in the crash, adding another layer of mystery to the event. Over time, skepticism grew around the Maury Island incident. Some investigators suggested that Dahl and Chrisman orchestrated the incident as a hoax for financial gain or publicity. They pointed to inconsistencies in the witnesses' stories and the lack of physical evidence. Additionally, Dahl later claimed that he was visited by mysterious black men who warned him to keep quiet about the incident. Despite the controversy and skepticism, the Maury Island incident remains a significant chapter in UFO lore. It illustrates the complexities and challenges in investigating and verifying such extraordinary claims, especially in an era when UFO sightings were becoming a cultural phenomenon. This case continues to be studied and debated by UFO enthusiasts and skeptics alike, highlighting the enduring fascination with the possibility of extraterrestrial encounters. Incident overview. Witnesses: Harold Dahl, a harbor patrolman. Fred the 50th Chrisman, Dahl's supervisor. Date: June 21, 1947. Key details. 1. Initial sighting. Harold Dahl claimed to have seen 6 doughnut-shaped objects on a boat near Maury Island. According to Dahl, one of the objects began to wobble and seemed to be in trouble. Debris started falling from the troubled object, damaging Dahl's boat, injuring his son, and killing his dog. 2. Material evidence. Dahl collected some of the debris, which he described as a white metal that was extremely light and a dark rock-like material that was very heavy. He later showed this debris to his supervisor, Fred Chrisman, who claimed to have witnessed one of the UFOs. 3. Government involvement. Dahl reported the incident to his superiors, and it eventually caught the attention of local newspapers and the FBI. Two military intelligence officers, Captain William Lee Davidson and Lieutenant Frank Mercer Brown, were sent to investigate. They collected the debris and interviewed Dahl and Chrisman. 4. Plane crash. On their return flight to California, the B-25 bomber carrying the officers and the debris crashed, killing both Davidson and Brown. The debris was reportedly lost in the crash. 5. Men in black. According to Dahl, he was visited by a man in a dark suit who warned him not to discuss the incident. This is one of the earliest mentions of the men in black in UFO folklore. 6. Hoax allegations. The FBI and Air Force investigations later suggested that the incident might have been a hoax. The debris was identified as ordinary metal slag, a byproduct of industrial processes. Both Dahl and Chrisman later admitted that the story was fabricated, although some UFO researchers believe they may have been coerced into retracting their statements. Significance. The Maury Island incident is significant as it predates the famous Kenneth, Arnold UFO sighting by just a few days, contributing to the surge of UFO sightings in the summer of 1947. The incident introduced vital elements that have become staples in UFO lore, such as mysterious debris, government cover-ups, and the men in black. There is no official psychological evaluation or clinical profile indicating that Harold Dahl, the central figure of the 1947 Maury Island incident, suffered from a diagnosed mental illness or clinical paranoia. However, looking at how investigators, the FBI, and military intelligence evaluated him at the time, his mental state and motivations were viewed through two very different lenses. The official intelligence and law enforcement view, hoax and fabrication. When the FBI and military investigators, such as Project Blue Book's Edward Ruppelt, examined Dahl and his partner Fred Chrisman, they did not diagnose him as mentally unstable in a clinical sense. Instead, they concluded he was a fabricator motivated by financial or attention-seeking gain. Investigators suspected the entire event, including the falling slag metal and the menacing visit from the man in black, was a deliberate scheme. According to declassified FBI files, Dahl later privately indicated to agents that he would claim the whole thing was a hoax, simply because the situation had spiraled out of control, and he wanted to escape public scrutiny, government pressure, and ridicule. The stress of a spiraling fabrication. If Dahl did invent the story, perhaps to cover up an illegal industrial waste dumping incident or a local accident involving boat damage, which many modern researchers suspect. The paranoia or intense anxiety he exhibited afterward was likely reactive, rather than a pre-existing psychiatric condition. The situation quickly turned overwhelming when two Army Air Force intelligence officers, who interviewed Dahl and took samples of the slag, died in a fiery B-25 bomber crash just days later. Facing intense federal investigations, military deaths, and media spotlight, anyone caught fabricating a high-profile sci-fi story would experience extreme panic and defensive behavior. Harold Dahl was not documented by medical professionals as mentally unstable or clinically paranoid. Rather, authorities viewed him as a pragmatic individual caught in the fallout of an escalating hoax. Someone who panicked and changed his tune when federal investigators and tragic plane crashes suddenly turned a local fabrication into a national security headache. Learning about these events makes me wonder how the Maury Island Incident helped shape the labyrinthine narrative of modern ufology, particularly the creation of the Men in Black, since that case stands as one of the earliest roots of the entire trope. I certainly cannot deny the existence of instantaneous interdimensional perception shifts. Whether Harold Dahl was telling the truth or running a hoax is something we can no longer prove in black and white. When high strangeness or interdimensional forces interfere, perception of reality changes alongside brain activity. Under those conditions, it is entirely natural that many witnesses would slip into temporary confusion and experience profound paranoia. That, I think, is the beauty of the human mind and the organic fragility of its brain function, given its limitations in processing dimensional shifts ideally. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archive Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact, The Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute hit of real-life experiences, perfect for your daily plunge into consciousness exploration. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.